Mr. Ankur Goyal, can we have you on the stage, please? A big round of applause.
I'm Ankur Goyal. Just to give a little introduction about myself, because few of the guys knows me right now, and I'm the founder and CEO of SquareUp Capital Partners, which is a business and financial advisory firm, and we are assisting all the stakeholders like startup investors, incubators as of now. And SquareUp has been incepted like near about 3-4 years back, where we have assisted like 40 plus investments as of now, starting from a ticket size INR 25 lakhs to up to 5 million USD, right? So great. We have Sonal also from the Meteor Ventures, and she would be adding much more points, over there in this discussion. So I want to have this much more interactive. If you have any query, anything, in between, you can just raise the hand. You can ask. I would like to share whatever we have learned in this, not just in this 4 years, but yes, before that, we are in the industry from last 15 plus years. We have a team of near about 5 to 6 core people over there in the SquareUp. And we are coming from a background where we have assisted in the valuations. We have been the financial controller for the MNCs, like in the healthcare, in the real estate. We have advised, I was a part of the VC firm called M-Cube Capital, where we have invested in a couple of investments. Few of them have gone to the Series B level as of now. And so that's a pretty much background to just start the conversation. So today, so you must be hearing about a lot of different topics from various different mentors, advisors in the industry. And in the morning also you have some interactive session, I believe, Weber, Abhinav. So over here, I would like to touch upon some of the very practical aspects, especially the investment process, right? So there we have seen like founders need to have some knowledge or some know-how, right? Once they are starting up, like for the investment process ahead, and especially, once they are interacting with the investors, they should know exactly what all nitty-gritties that will come into the process, so it's not just a fantasy thing where if I would say investor has given you a heads up that yes, they are interested to invest in your company, but the game doesn't over there, right? It is actually getting started. And we always say, unless you get the check in your bank account, right, from the investor, till the time there is no point to get, just make a success or make I would say to make a celebration, right? So there is an entire process around that. So I would like to touch upon all the nitty-gritties which we have seen in the various different startup companies, in this 40 plus investments also, and few of more of the learnings that we have seen in the industry going on, especially in all the different rounds. So I would like to ask, I think many of you must be aware of how the investor earn their money if they are putting in investment in the company. Anybody? By exit, and exit of any securities or anything they have, invested in. So answer is yes. So the investor only earns, and their focus is the exit, right? So in fact, if you talk about the valuations, they are doing primarily at the back end. So it's from the perspective that whether they can get the exit out of this investment, because they, like you, since you are running your own business, they are also mandated by their, I would say the LPs or the investors whom they have taken the money to invest in the startup companies to invest and take a successful exit. Although how many exit happens, not happens, that everyone knows. So investors earn via exit, and they are least bothered. Although they are these days, if you talk about the post-COVID scenario, they are definitely looking at the sustainable businesses, right, where the companies are earning profits, they have the revenues, they have the MOM or the year-on-year growth, but they are least bothered about the profitability or the losses at the moment. Their focus is like, can you become an investable opportunity in the future, in the near future? Whatever the targets, whatever the milestone you're putting in front of the investors, maybe in terms of the customer base, maybe in terms of the validation of your product, your technology, your value proposition. So whether you can be a next unicorn and whether you can give an opportunity to your investors to make an exit, this is primarily, they would like to understand from the founders also. So in many of the conversation, I think many of you must have interacted with some round of investors, or maybe someone has already received investments or the checks. So you must have received those questions from the investor that how will you provide us the exit? What is the time frame that you are considering to provide us the exit, right? So investors earn via exit, very true, and they are least bothered about the profitability. But if a business is a profitable, that's a plus. That's a plus. It gives them a leverage that yes, they have make it successful in a way. I mean, success has no definition, although, even if you raise the Series B, Series E, that doesn't mean the business has become successful. So, but they would like to see that you can drive the scenario, you have the potential, you have make it profitable, the business makes some sense over there, and that's why they are coming also, right? Before starting the process, I would also like to add, many of the mentors, advisors must have had you, like, what are the factors an investor see in an investable opportunity, right? So as per my learning, I would like to share my learning point of view. So there, because we are also already advising certain funds as well as the angel investor group over there, where we have invested in, advised these companies. So their focus is first on the target market size. I think we generally, whenever we are making our presentation, our B plan and all, we provide a slide over there. But are we relating it to our business? That makes sense, because sometimes we didn't get much of the realistic figure, realistic reports, realistic analysis behind that, and we try to put anything over there in the market sizing. But market sizing is the key, because if there is a big market, there is a huge market in terms of $1 billion and all, where the potential has yet been materialized or not being materialized by any big player as of now, right, or a big startup. That means it gives an impression that yes, there is a possibility that tomorrow I can take an exit. Tomorrow I can get the exit out of it. So investors get a predominantly, the validation in terms of the opportunity you are talking about. So market sizing is something which makes literally very, very much relevance. Although investor would not be, talking to you much more on this, they would like to see your presentation and all. Second, guys, team factor. I think it's again a very major element, and you must have heard in the various different sessions, presentations and all. But I would like to add something else. Even if you are a single founder, that doesn't mean that you can't be an investable opportunity, right? Right now, there are there are different examples, and in a very recent deal which has been closed in our case, like which is of $2.5 million. There was a single founder who have either the background in that particular field, or background in exit, or background in the startup side, especially in terms of running that show, making it successful to a level where they can fetch the next round of investment. That may be an investable opportunity as well. Maybe you may lack, in various different areas, because one person cannot be a jack of all, right? You require a person in the tech, you might require a person who can handle the business ops, who can handle the marketing. Yes, the team could be there, and later on you might require a co-founder with you, right? So investors will actually help you, especially once you are going to the next rounds, right? That how you can get a co-founder with you who can synergize with you, who can take this show to the next level, where it will much become more investable or more sustainable. If you don't have the right co-founder with you and you are a single founder, even though if you have a good advisory board with you, and we always advise to have a good advisory board, although this statement is going from now more than 5 years, 6 years, you must be hearing that, okay, we should have the mentor, we should have the advisor. But guys, honestly speaking, you should have a right advisor with you on the board. It could be a technical, if you are on a tech side, if your tech-based startup or tech-based company is. It could be on the ops side. It could be on the marketing side, where he could or she could have, connect in the industry, or they could guide you, especially from their experience, in the way forward, most importantly. So don't hesitate by giving some portion of your equity. I always say be flexible, because your equity is a toilet paper unless it get materialized either in the next round of investment or as a part of the acquisition or IPO. If either of three is not happening, whatever the equity you possess, maybe the 90%, maybe 70%, 50%, 60%. There are a lot of examples. Many of the startup over here who was from Rajasthan, they know that many of the startup who were much more aligned to their equity, despite of the fact they might have the investable as well as the growing opportunity, they are still sitting on the equity. the business has not grown to the next level and they are still sitting on the equity, they are still hunting, Prashant, right? If I'm not wrong, they are still hunting for the funds. And now they are begging like anything. I mean, not in terms of like, because they are running the business, they are maintaining their profitability, whatever it is, but to grow to the next level, especially to accelerate the business to the next level, it is much more required. And you need to be a flexible. The valuation, especially, whatever the valuations, we will talk about it, but you need to be flexible, either in terms of onboarding some mentor, advisor, or to give leverage to your employees as a ESOP, etc. So now coming to the investment process, because that's a general gyan, I think many of you must have possessed that scenario. So guys, let's go with the investment process. So there are a lot of different stages, and it's a combined package, I would say, of different phases and stages, which says, that if all the scenario gets a positive sign off or a green go ahead, then only an investment comes into the business. So initially the scenario happens like you go with the initial discussions. Investors like your product, like your team, they would like to understand your technology, your product, your validation much more in detail. Then it will go for the technical discussions, for the detailed discussions over there. And then a consensus comes in. Yes, it becomes a investable opportunity. Yes, they have the good target market size. They have a good potential customers. They have the good validation, good team, good timing, right? Good problem. I mean, the target problem and the target solution they have. I mean, all the different factors which generally we say, if positive, so they would like to give a go ahead in terms of, yes, there is a point where we can invest into you, and yes, we are seeing a good returns out of it, right? So once the technical discussions and all happen, I mean, the scenario comes in the valuation. It's a prima facie at the very initial level, even if you're talking to any angel investor network or maybe the micro VCs or the VCs, right? The discussions comes to the valuation level. Okay, what tentative valuation you will have, and so whatever the valuation, whatever the dilution percentage that is being agreed upon, a consensus is being formed, and thereafter the investment process actually gets started. Guys, make a cautious note over here. Whatever you are presenting to the investor, especially in terms of whatever you have achieved so far, in terms of number, in terms of financial numbers, compliances, etc., that has to be true, right? That has to be substantially true, if not exact. The reason is because this is just a presentation you have given to him. He has just relied on the belief on the presentation or the fact that you are representing to the investor. But later on, if the due diligence and the other process will start, and if the significant variance comes in, investor may step back. And it has actually happened in the case of 2 investments where we were doing the DD on behalf of investors. So it's a very cautious point, because, and I'll brief about little more detail once the next slides and the next scenario will come. So whatever you're presenting, especially on your financial number, don't try to give something which you can just create maybe on the cash basis or no. If something you can validate through your books of accounts, through your, just imagine if you are doing your due diligence for your own business, right? But all care you will take care, right? In terms of whether you talk about the billing, the payments, in terms of coming to the bank account, filings, etc. So has to be substantially correct whatever you are presenting. Even if so, nobody is perfect. Startup is not about to be perfect, especially in the early journeys. But if you are transparent, and even though if there is a penalty, if there is anything from the department that is being levied, be transparent to the investor, because they will figure out the mechanism. They will either fund you extra to meet out those liabilities and all, right? So once all these factors are being discussed, technical and the primary discussions agreed upon, valuations agreed upon, then the scenario comes in the term sheet way, right? So term sheet, as you know, it's a non-binding scenario, but it try to covers, what would be there in the agreement, what we have agreed primarily in terms of amount of investment, the equity, the valuation, and a lot of different factors. There are 2 ways to have the term sheet these days, right? Some investors are giving a very short term sheet, and many of the aspects of the term sheet, your terms will be there in the agreements, the formal agreement or the definitive agreement which will come into the picture. But sometimes, to safeguard the time in the agreement negotiations and all, some people try to give a term sheet, which is a quite detailed term sheet, try to cover all the respective points, whether it's an instrument, for example, either is it a CCPS, compulsory convertible preference shares, direct equity, right, valuation, locking period, ESOP pool, etc. So these days, which we have seen in the investment, and I think later on Sonal can also add on into this, but term sheets, the people try to make it much more elaborative so that there is lesser scope for you, especially once the actual agreement comes into the signing stage. So I will show you the term sheet also. I would say a template and all. How does it look like and what it covers. So over here we are at the consensus, where the valuation, technical discussion, primary discussions, everything is agreed upon, and they have given you the term sheet. Might be there is a possibility you are not getting a term sheet also, because there could be two breed of investors. One might think that you might sell it off in the market. You may go to the other investors and can fetch upon, although they are keeping a terms in the term sheet now, that once you sign it up, you won't have the active discussion with any other investor in the industry, to scout for the investment. However, in another way around, for example, in a waste management company investment which is going on right now, they have given the leverage also, that okay, we are giving you the term sheet, you can scout the other investor also as a co-investors, or maybe as a lead investor. So that might happen, right? So it depends upon how much is your requirement, what this investor is filling in. If it is meeting the entire requirement, then in that case might be he's having a restrictive clause. If not, then he would like to have some co-investors or maybe the lead investors with you. In that case, he would give you the leverage to, okay, you can scout the investment from the other people, and you can always keep us in the loop or in the note, right? So once this scenario is done, what is the next step? Next step would be, now whatever you have communicated, as I told you, whatever you are communicating, whatever the figure scenario you are communicating to the investors, investor would like to validate that, right, before writing a check to you. Now, what is the validation process? They hire a third-party agency. They already have onboarded some agencies right now, many of them. So they will go for the financial and legal due diligence with you. Over here, whatever your financial numbers that you have projected, your returns, GST return, TDS, income tax, whatever you talk about, even the secretarial, even the patent, IPRs, whatever you have communicated, they would cross-check, right? They would cross-check, okay, whatever you're communicating is actually there. There is no significant difference in what you have proposed, you have told to the investor, and actually which they found, especially as a part of the DD process. Guys, many times, and especially in one of the investment which is going on, startup founders, they think about, okay, we need, the question comes in their mind, do we need to be perfect in terms of compliance and all? Do we need to be ready with all the scenarios? See, you can't be perfect at the moment, and definitely there would be some glitches, either in terms of secretarial compliance, some legal contracts, some, for example, the domain names, some IPRs you have filed in the promoter's individual name, not have transferred it to the company. But that's okay. That's okay. That will come in your DD, and before the investment is being proceeded, or maybe after the investment, a time period will be given where that can be transferred in the name of the company itself, right? But what I mean to say over here is, you need to be transparent, especially what has happened in the company. You need not to hide some significant figures. Minute scenario, definitely. I mean, these are the part and parcel of any business and any scenario, so it could be there. But if it is significant, you have to be transparent. So, and let me give you an example. In the DD, when we were doing for two of the investments which actually got dropped. So they were in the agri space, and they in the 2019, March 19, they had some figure of 70-80 lakhs as a revenue in their books. But in the first quarter of this 19-20, they have this turnover of 3 CR approx. Investor got fascinated, right? What they have done. I mean, we are good to go. Everything is agreed. Due diligence start happening. In this due diligence, the main challenge which came in, out of the 3 CR of the turnover, I'm talking about the broad figures and the broad scenario to make you understand, more than 75% was not there on the books in the bank account. Hardly 60-70 lakhs was there, which was there in the bank account. And they were saying, the founders were giving their rationale that we are dealing with the farmers, we are dealing with the local people. So cash transactions are happening a lot. Cash purchases, cash sales and all. Okay. Then due diligence, if it's a good agency, or if they would like to go in detail, they would like to see what invoices, what scenario you have issued, and they might ask for some background check of, the background details that you have taken from the farmers also, right? So we did that, and in that case we found they purchased the scenario from the Azadpur Mandi, right? Majority of the bills are from the Azadpur Mandi, and in many of the cases, the bill numbers and everything was not in the alignment. So as a result, the gist was, it seems very clearly, because and one more important aspect, in case of an agri trade and all, you don't require to pay GST and all, correct? So GST returns you can file nil, you can escalate the turnover anyhow. So there, this investment got dropped because it was found that whatever the number they are projecting, it doesn't seem much more relevant as well as the actual, and so this was the case. So you have to take financial and legal due diligence very carefully, guys. Practically there might be a possibility, and in fact in one of the investment happened, that these agencies might try to grill you like anything. Even they may ask you some unnecessary questions, unnecessary information they may ask, right? So founders get sometimes agitated. In fact, in one of the investment that happens, founders actually got agitated and they reverted back, negative to the agency, that you don't know how to do the DD and all. So guys, you have to be cooperative. If you have any challenge you face with the third party who has been appointed by the investor, you have to report and discuss with the investors, right? Not to third party agencies, and your behavior with the investors along with any third party agency which is coming on board has to be very cooperative, right? Just since these discussions are happening, let me tell you about one small story, of the practical story. One investment of this 2.5 million recently has been signed up. Over there, what happened, like investors, the founders got very much casual with the investors, right? So what happened, since this process was going on from the last 4-5 months, one of the co-founder, he became so casual also, despite of the fact that all the professional or the formal discussions and the scenario happening, he also become quite casual. What happened? Well, once we have a discussion, and a very active, or I would say very serious discussion on the SHA, the co-founder, which was much more, I would say the casual with the investor, he showed the same attitude over the call. And you won't believe, this investment was about to drop because of the behavior of one of the co-founder, because whatever he, messaging investors on a day and night, right, saying like, okay, if अगर आपको सब अपना ही कराना है तो आप जो बोलोगे हम आंख बंद करके साइन कर देंगे. What is the basis of negotiation? So rough language. Then in fact the investors took a second call that whether should we go for the investment in this startup company or not. So guys, what I'm trying to say is, even whatever the level the investors are comfortable with you, or you are comfortable with the investor, please maintain the decorum throughout the transaction and thereafter, right? Especially in terms of your talks, especially even if they are trying to be very casual in terms of some provisions, some discussions, you try to be formal, you try to take it through a process and not to skip that, and take all the conversations very carefully, very seriously, involving all the co-founders actively, right? Otherwise this might be the reason of the investment drop. So okay, so once the financial and the legal due diligence completes, obviously there would be some observations. Let me tell you, and it's a good point for the startup founder but negative from the investor. In majority of the agencies which are working in the industry, and especially Sonal, we have seen in all our 40-50 plus investments as of now, majority of the chartered accountant firms who are doing the DD, right, they are, with due respect to their competencies and all, many of time we have seen, it has not been done in that detail, where from investors safeguarding or the founder safeguarding can be done. So what happens, because sometimes there are some significant areas which require attention. Let's take an example. In a few of our DDs, there were some observations that, first of all, the GST, whenever you pay the GST liabilities and all, there might be possibility that you don't have the funds, so you might have stopped some GST payment. It is very, practical, especially in terms of the startup, because they are already hunting for the fund and, utilizing their fund very cautiously. So there were, the check was near about 40 lakhs INR, but the GST liability was 10 plus lakhs, right? So it was found based on their input, whatever the claims they are making, in the DD process, it was found that okay, 10 plus lakhs is a liability. So it was an observation that came in. But does that mean the investment will lose out? Answer is no. It depends. It depends how much is the significance, first of all, the variation is, and how founders are ready to mitigate that. So founders agree over here that okay, they will pay out of their own pockets or whatever the resources they have, this liability, and thereafter this check will come. And actually it happens like that. Founders first pay those liabilities, and thereafter the investor got the comfort, and accordingly he writes a check and furthermore proceeded with the agreements and all. Similarly, sometimes, as I told, sometimes your IPRs, your domain names, these might not be in the company's name. So investor might require these need to be transferred to the company's name before the investment comes in. Furthermore, you might have some subsidiary company, or you could be a director in some other company. Maybe, for example, few of the founders, if they have worked out in some previous company, their status is there as a director as of now. They have not shut down the company, and definitely because no one knows all the processes and all. So you might be reflecting as a director, your DIN is there, maybe qualified, disqualified, but you are part of some other company, and there, they in the due diligence process, it comes in that okay, you have to shut down the other company, or maybe you have to resign from the directorship of the other company. Sometimes it becomes practical, sometimes it doesn't. Why I'm highlighting this? It could be a very crucial issues. You have to address it timely, because in one of the investment, there the founder was not able to take the exit from the previous investment, and because of that the investor was not able to sign up the agreement for this investment. So it extended the period for 1.5 to 2 months, where it successfully happened, and thereafter the investment proceeded. So these are the very practical challenges, practical issues, especially because we are the startup founders. We are not the experts. We are learning various different phases. We are right now struggling for customers, our product, funding, right, resources. But at the same time, these compliances, these scenario also makes much more relevant to the investors, and we can't just live in the fantasy, right, that the startup or investor has given us the go ahead. So these are the part and parcel of your entire investment process over there. So then once the observation and payouts are being resolved, then we come to the consensus, okay, let's move ahead. We're talking about the share subscription, share agreement. Before coming to that, there are a couple of more things I would like to give a brief. You must have heard about ESOPs. Everyone knows about ESOP plans, right? We give the leverage to our employees who have been part of this journey since beginning. We want to appreciate their performance. They want to involve them into the company over there. We give ESOPs. Guys, ESOP plan and ESOP pool, you must have heard about ESOP pool, right? Are the different things. And sometimes you will see the investor might ask you to have the ESOP pool before that, and every investor would like to have, honestly. If you have not created, if you are a growing company, seems investable, in that case you may go and create a ESOP pool, which doesn't mean that you're giving the ESOP to the employees right away, but you're keeping your equity separate, right, for the employees, for the promotion of employees and all. So ESOP pool is something where you're just passing a resolution, creating a pool over there, which has no physical existence as of now. ESOP plan is something where you have actually make a ESOP policy. Might be you have not given the equity, but you have made a ESOP policy, and as per the ESOP policy, you will be now giving the equity to your employees. I would say ESOP options to your employees, which they can materialize based on performance in 1, 2, 3 or 4 years, depending upon the case-to-case basis. So many times it has been seen, so founder seems that we need to bring this ESOP policy right away. Answer is no. Before investment, you can just create a pool, right? Tomorrow, after the investment, maybe the investor might ask you, or you may create the ESOP policy now with a considerable and a very unbiased time, because this time, once you get a term sheet or once you get the header from the investor, until the time your check actually comes into the bank account, it's a balloon period, I say. Why? Because founders are living in a different zone. Their focus is investment should come, late क्यों हो रहा है, right? या उसको लेके plans चालू हो गए, उसको लेके हमने hiring plan कर लिया. Obviously, lot of things will go. It's quite natural, but ESOP policy has to be drafted very carefully and have to be given a considerable time over it, right? So you can have the comfort to create the ESOP policy later after the investments also. So don't rush. to create a ESOP policy, create a ESOP pool by passing a resolution and all, that is okay. That is admissible and that can be suffice. Furthermore, before coming to the agreement, sometimes it requires your authorized capital. I mean, many of you might have heard about this term, right? Authorized capital is basically in your charter document, a capital up to which, it's more like a CC limit, up to which you can issue shares in the company to the stakeholders or to the founders and promoters. So it has to be there, although it's a very formal process that happens there, but just to make you aware, sometimes you need to have a cushion in the authorized capital, until unless thereafter it takes certain time period also, near about a week or 10 days, because of which your investment process can get delayed. So although whosoever is the investor advisor, guiding you on those transactions, he will actually make you through that particular scenario. So coming to the SHAs, now it could be a share subscription, shareholders agreement, or it could be in a part of two, shareholders agreement or share subscription agreement separate. What does it mean? We will touch upon few of the areas, which is quite relevant from the founder's perspective. And so tomorrow, if you are going for the investment, you can think about and you can look out those particular terms accordingly. So guys, now this is a Bible. This is a formal agreement which will be a charter document for your investment now. And your investment is based on all this term and conditions which you have agreed upon, and accordingly investor will drive you. Whatever the good relations you have with the investor, whatever the relations going on with the investors, this document after sign up will never be picked up until unless any dispute happens. That is a reality. Once you signed up, in all the different investments, many of them have not even seen, what we have agreed, what all check and balances we have agreed upon, but where the prior approval, etc., was required, except if the investor is saying for those approval that you have taken this action and our approval was required, or if any dispute happens, then only this agreement has been picked up. This is the reality. But this is a very crucial agreement because tomorrow, whatever goes with the investment and whatever you agreed with the investment, you should know exactly what you are agreed upon, right? So I'll talk about this combined agreement. I'll not segregate to make it much more easier. So many of the terms which comes into the play, even if you are taking a check of 50 lakhs or even if you are taking a check of say 5 CR or more, right? However, many of the scenarios, once the check round goes little higher, right? Check amount goes little higher, then the tightness and the control comes into the play as per the SHA. So you must have heard about, and many of people must have said कि okay, investor क्या हमारे सर पे आके बैठे जाते हैं, right? मतलब कितना leverage होता है कि हम boundary और एक bracket में play करते हैं. So answer is, if the ticket size is small, the smaller the ticket size, the lesser would be the control, lesser would be the, I would say, this boundary to play off. The bigger the ticket size would be, the more of the boundaries, more of the conditions which will actually come into the play over there. So once you're talking about agreement, see guys, they know about you right now based on whatever the due diligence happened, whatever your background, whatever you have done in terms of validation and all. But they would like to see your continuance in the business for some period of time now. It cannot be like, once the check is coming in and you just dilute your equity and leave the company. So it's called lock-in, right? So founders lock-in, that comes into the play, where generally a time frame of 3 to 5 years, depending upon the investment deal, depending upon the negotiation with the investors and the stage, they would like to have. Generally 4 or 5 years we have seen very easily. So their investor would not like you to exit the company, to start some other business, to compete, to solicit, anything else other than this company, he won't agree to do that, right? And it's a very rational call, right? So founders lock-in will actually come into the play. There, whatever the period they agree, they would give you some release mechanism. They might give you some release mechanism. Release mechanism means, okay, we are 100% controlling, 100% making your equity in the lock-in. But yes, with the time, the time passes away, then in that case, you would have certain leverage in terms of equity, which you can again go and sell. But if you talk about the major round, investor won't allow you to even part any particular equity. There is a right called ROFR, right of first refusal, that comes into the picture, because whenever you are going to sell any part of your equity, then in that case the ROFR comes into the play. Means you have to first take the refusal from the existing investors, then only you can go over there, right? And sometimes even if you're transferring to the other people, they would have this check of first approval. So lock-in comes in, release mechanism comes in, but we generally say you should have 2 MBIT with you, right? Which is more like a founder side. I would say founders should have. So whatever the check you are raising right now, you should have a promoter's liquidity. Means a 5%, 7%, 10%, whatever you agreed with the investors, that is the equity amount which you can actually encash anytime in the industry, right? It won't dilute your control. It won't give investor a cautious element, but it is something because you are putting your effort, you will be start earning a salary also, right? Once the investment comes in. But if financial need comes, then how you will get it? Because you can't sell your equity. Then this promoter's equity segment actually safeguard you and accept the without having the right of offer, plus otherwise I would say any other control mechanism. So it's a free equity that you can transfer up to, say for example 2%, 5%, 7% that you can keep, right? Similarly, they would like to cover other elements if something negative happens with the founders, some disability or anything else. So these are the general terms that is being there. Next, ESOP pool. As I told, they would like to create generally a 10% is the standard ESOP pool an investor would like to have. And if not created before, they would like to create via this agreement, right? Because they don't want to dilute their part just because you are giving the leverage to the employees over there. Next, if I talk about, instrument. Most importantly, what kind of instrument investor is agreed upon or putting the investment in. So there are some 2 or 3 sort of formats, or the ways investor actually invest into. It could be CCPS, means compulsory convertible preference shares, CCDs, compulsory convertible debts, or direct equity, or it could be optionally convertible debt also. Generally, the mechanism is happening via CCPS in majority of the cases, because as the term says preference shares, it is giving preference to the investors, especially at the time once the liquidation happens, and that's called, it is a liquidation preference, a right over there that comes in the agreement. So investor keep a liquidation right. So for example, they write a check to you and say after 2 months the company goes into the liquidation and anything negative happens. So investors can safeguard their money first before coming any amount over there in the bank account of founders, right? So they would like to have this liquidation preference. Generally, we have seen, especially in the last couple of years, the people are keeping a liquidation preference of 1x or maximum 2x, right? Means if they have invested 1 CR, so 1x means 1 CR they will draw first, and thereafter anything will go to the other stakeholders. If it is 2x, then means 2 CR will come to the investors first. So on the liquidation preference, that's why the investor keeps CCPS, generally the instrument over there. CCD sometimes, it doesn't mean that since it's a debit debenture, so they are interested towards the interest rate. No. But despite of the fact, going with the other legalities in terms of share capital and all, they might go for the CCD part also. Equity, we are seeing very less investments happening, right, where the direct equity is coming in. But when you onboard an advisor or some mentor, maybe the direct equity is part with over there in that case. So that is there. Then coming to the other different clauses, so investor would like to have the monitoring rights with you. So it's just not the investment, but you have to report to the investor also with the time. They might have the information right. They might ask you a monthly or a quarterly basis MIS. You must have heard about the MIS. So it plays a very crucial role, because now till that time investment came in, you were having a complete liberty, right? You need not to report anyone else in terms of what is the financial number, performance going on. But once investment comes in, if the ticket size is up to, say for example, $1 million, right? Generally these MISs and these things are being asked on a quarterly basis, right? Doesn't give much pressure to provide on the month-on-month basis. But yes, there are some exceptions. Certain funds are there. In our case, if you talk about a fund which is launching soon by our Angel Group, so there they are keeping it on a monthly basis itself. So the time frame is generally discussed based on the ticket size. If the ticket size is big, over $1 million and so, then definitely the monthly MIS comes into the picture. So then you must have heard about exit. Like investor is concerned about the exit, and also if something positive doesn't happen with the business, what will be the action plan that will be there with the investor. So these are again the coverage, especially in the shareholders agreement they would like to have. So for example, generally if an investment is coming into the business, the time frame, a standard time frame is 5 years. That in the 5 years, founders and the company have to try to provide an exit to the investor, right? But if founders of the company or the company doesn't provide this exit to the investor, maybe by a third party sale or IPO or so these are the 2 or 3 mechanisms, maybe the buyback also, then in that case a right which gets triggered in the hands of investor is the drag over there, the drag right. So there is never ever a condition over investors' securities to not to sell it to market, to sell it to the market after a certain period of time. No. Even if he's investing right now and after 2 months they find some good, maybe the acquirer or the investor, they might sell their equity, right? So over there what happens, drag right, what drag right means basically, where investors can look out for the acquirer or for some investor in the industry who can bought their shares, and investor can actually drag promoter also to sell their shares, right? So till that time they were on the leverage, right? That whatever happening, okay, they are trying, they are putting their effort, they will provide the exit to the investors, but nothing happens. So now investor will take a charge and it becomes negative, it becomes like a penal, you can say, where investor will take a charge, will look out some external buyer, and then he will also ask and drag the equity of the promoters. It could be proportionate, it could be a full drag. Generally it's a full drag because then it cannot be a leverage to the promoters anyhow. Similarly, if the company going for the next round of funding, right? So existing investors try to keep a right over there as well, that you will first take, first you will give us to a right to invest, right? It could be proportionate, it could be full. Generally it is proportionate. If you are raising say 100 CR later on, so whatever the percentage on a fully dilutable basis investor has invested in, so he might have that right. Okay, that much amount I can also infuse in the business once you are going for the next round of funding. It's a leverage, right? So that is there, and there might be possibility when the negative scenario happens, means there is a fraud, there is embezzlement or some. So generally event of default or these sort of clauses actually an investor try to keep, so that it can safeguard and it can trigger the drag and the other rights if anything negative happens in the company, right? So so that is there on the share subscription shareholders. Many more rights, yes. And one important thing I would like to touch upon, that is the reserve matters. I think you have heard upon, and also the observer and director. Means there are a lot of different terms. Sonal can also add over there if I'm skipping anything, because there are a lot of different things, and you can ask. If you have any query right now, you can ask me on any particular matter. Otherwise, I'll take it forward. Anything? Yeah, please. See, term sheet will anyhow be non-binding, right? What I was meaning that time, that investor once you're signing the term sheet, then he can bound you also on those terms that you won't go to any other investor to or talk further with the other investment process over there, right? Because we have given the trust, and tomorrow it should not happen that okay, we have given the term sheet, you are going to the market, you get the investment from some other investor, maybe on the better terms, and our term sheet is scrapped. So generally at that time they won't like you to interact with the other investors and all. So in that case they bind it. But whatever the terms which is mentioned in the term sheet, it is non-binding until unless this formal agreement, I am saying this formal Bible, is being signed between all the stakeholders. Yeah. Anything else?
So I have a question, like suppose I am having 100 shares in my company. Me and my brother, we are co-founders.
Yeah.
So when investor would come in, so will they issue new shares or you have to dilute from 100 shares?
Okay. See, dilution means generally it's always a new capital. See, there is a share transfer and share issuance, good question, I would say, because many times founders get confused also with these terms and these scenarios. Whenever the investment is coming into the business, investment means money is coming to the company's bank account. Against that, you are issuing shares or securities to the investors. So it is always a new security which is being issued to the investors. However, there might be a possibility that suppose if the round is of 5 million, 4 million they are putting in the company, 1 million they want to acquire from the existing investor. The rationale is the more of the brains in the board of the company, in the shareholding of the company, it will make challenge for the future rounds also. So it's more like a consolidation. Generally, the angel investors get the exit at the time of Series A, Series B, which we have seen majorly. The reason is because the new investors would like to have your cap table very much clear, right? Not too complicated, not too lengthy, where different investors are there. But yes, the exit is totally subject to their approval. I mean, if the existing investors are agreed or not. In one of our investment which has happened in the logistic company, when I was the investment manager over there in 2016, it has raised a Series B also. So there we invested amount and we took a equity over there in the company as per the policy of that fund. And till today, this investor is remain in the company. They have not taken an exit, right? Because generally, if the company is growing, next round of investments are happening, and the valuation per equity share is growing up and up, then in that case, generally these existing investors don't take an exit, right? So this is the issuance. Share transfer, as I told, where the money comes into the bank account of the person who is transferring his shares, not to the company. In case of a share transfer, never ever the money comes to the company's bank account, because it's your property. Suppose I am holding X number 100 shares in your company, I am transferring my shares to Sonal, then in that case, if Sonal is paying any amount to me, it is coming to my bank account, not to the company's one, right? So there, in case of investment, the new equities always, new securities are issued over there. Yeah.
So recently we had transactions such like my brother was holding 10%, I was holding 90%.
Okay.
So I gave him 20% stake. So what he asked us to transfer, my brother transfer certain amount to my bank account.
Correct.
This transaction happened. So what you are saying is correct.
Yeah, that's a share transfer. Yeah.
The second question I have about the voting rights. So do the voting rights also come into the term sheet?
Yeah, but see, generally, one term, especially in terms of voting right, investor keep, even if they are investing as a CCPS or maybe some other convertible instrument, they keep the voting right on as converted basis, right? Means today, if they are saying, say, 100 CCPS which has a 10% on a fully convertible basis, 10% is the value in the 10% is the voting right in the company. So today, if you're taking any decision in the company by shareholders meet and all, so it will you have to take their approval also, so far as their 10% is concerned, because they have agreed in the agreement. I'm talking about agreement, not the term sheet. That 10% voting rights will be considered as if converted basis, right? So these sort of terms they keep in the term sheet as well. Yeah. Yeah. So it's there. It's not recent. It's quite years back also. Yeah. So, but generally we have not seen because as if converted basis, generally these rights are being there, right? So no differential rights are there which investor would like to keep. For example, if on the equity percentage side, as if converted 10% they are coming in, but they would like to have 25% as a voting right. So we have not seen in any of the practical transaction over there that is being happening right now. Yeah. Yeah. So good again, because many times founders got confused over there as well. So guys, pre-money, post-money as a word denote. Post-money means once the money comes into the bank account, thereafter what is the shareholding structure? Generally, all the valuations which an investor is discussing with you, or maybe keeping floor cap and all, I will touch upon those pointers also later. So always a pre-money valuation is being considered. Pre-money means what? As a standalone right now, what is the value of your shares? So for example, in a practical example, generally 10,000 equity shares are being issued with a 1 lakh capital, right? Two founders, generally 70-30 for example. So 10,000 equity shares you are having right now. If they are agreeing on a pre-money valuation of 10 CR, right? That means 10 CR. So current your equity share value 10 CR divided by 10,000. So pre-money valuation is something which is before money is being invested. What is the percentage they are talking about? So why is it being considered? Because once they are talking about any share percentage, say 20% they would take on a pre-money basis, correct? So pre-money valuation is 10 CR. Now they are talking about 20%. 20% means 2,000 shares, correct? From the 10,000, which is a pre-money as standalone basis. On a post-money basis, if I talk about this 2,000 will be divided by 12,000, correct? Because investment has now come. That's why it is a post-money. So always, and especially very rarely, you will see in the term sheet or maybe in the agreements that the post money has been talked about, or if it is talked about, it is just to give a reference or to that pre-money itself, that what would be the post money percentages. So in the shareholder agreement, if you talk about, generally in the schedules, you will find that what is the, on the closing or on the signing date, what is the shareholding structure, right? On a fully convertible basis, on a closing date, once the investment happens, what would be the what would be your shareholding structure post money, and on converted basis, if CCPS, CCD get converts into the future, what would be the on converted basis shareholding structure? So all are being described and prescribed over there in the agreements. Yeah. Pre-money. They talked about the pre-money. See, post-money is totally subject to the amount of investment, right? It could be anything. They would be talking about the pre-money, okay, we take this much of the equity on a pre-money basis. Anyone else? Yeah. You can run. I mean, there is no option. I mean, see, you are asking this from the investment perspective, correct? Investor won't like you to run to have your foots in two boats. No. If it is competitive, see, if it is synergical, like for example, you are running a business of say agri platform you are running, and you have opened up a subsidiary for agri input, for example, but it is synergical, then in that case, this holding subsidiary structure they allow, right? Provided considering, what is the rationale behind going into the new subsidiary, new separate company. But if you are running the same show into the different company, they won't allow. From the investment perspective, it is a negative. I mean, they won't like you to divert your mind into the two companies, rather consolidate and run the show. Why you want to run into the separate company in that way? Yeah, again, it's a case-to-case basis. It will be evaluated. I mean, what is the strategy behind that by forming a new company and taking this different segment altogether over there? So make it as a subsidiary of the main holding company where the investment is actually coming in. Make it as a subsidiary, then there is no problem. But if you are holding as a founder, holding a share in the A company and also in the B company, your focus is diluted, right? So investor would like your focus to be in the company where he is investing in. Yeah. Good question. Again, it happens in one of the case. Guys, sleeping partners, I think it is giving, it is originating much more other questions as well. There might be possibility. In one of the case, it happens like there were two co-founders. They started the journey. One co-founder take a exit in the terms that he don't want to continue the business with the main founder, and he's starting his own, maybe the job, maybe some other company and all. Interestingly, he's not giving the equity also. Then you are in a trouble, right? Then in that case, what to do? Because now something can happen either via consensus, or if you have signed up a co-founders agreement initially. It is advisable, you have heard about this term, but practically, in fact, Sonal can add over there. I mean, I have not seen many of the founders have actually signed up the co-founders agreement. And because there is no co-founders agreement, now he is a promoter. If you run anything in this company, you take the investment, whatever you do, whatever your voting rights or the equity he enjoys, right? He can drag you till that time.
So in that case, the company which this scenario happened, luckily the consensus happened between the co-founders. One co-founder who was active in his show, he gave a decent amount to the other co-founder, and his stake was not make nil, it was reduced. He was again very smart enough, right? He knows that the company is growing and the company might raise the investment. So the structuring we make it like a angel investor with a minute equity, and so it might happen. So it is always advisable, if your alignment with the co-founder is so that great, even though sign up a co-founders agreement with the mutual terms and all.
I have a family with that which I'm not running for it. My family is my conflict that I'm
Yeah, so it might, if they are going for the investment tomorrow, I mean, I'm just giving a reference, right? So
The option that you remain a shareholder but not the director. So you should resign from the directorship if that will pose a problem in your future round of investments in your present company which you are running. And then I think you can talk about the expulsion clause that you can have in SSA and SHA.
yeah.
The expulsion clause which gives the right to the investors to actually, take out the troublesome founder.
Correct. It happens. So yes, I'll just touch upon. So there is also one situation which is a deadlock. Generally, once you're keeping a 50-50 equity and both the people are the directors, so there might be a possibility, and it happens in one of the investment too. That's what I'm just referring to, that it might be a deadlock. And deadlock situation is where you can't pass even a board resolution, can't pass even a shareholder resolution, right? And what happened? I mean, until unless a consensus comes in, you can't move further. So it happens, and in these cases, generally, you have no other option either to start a new company or to settle it down, right? So yeah, so in the SHA, I mean, there are a lot of different clauses will come, and I'll come to this clause also which Sonal has touched upon. So investors actually, take care of all the different situations, which can happen in the journey over there. Tomorrow there might be dispute, there might be, a promoter is actually taking exit over there, right? So over there, investors actually try to rule that particular scenario, because he can't just he can't give the room over there that his investment got either the negative valuation or maybe can lost, right? So in that case, they try to protect it. Maybe they can, they can just ask you to transfer those leaving promoter shares to the ESOP pool, or they might have the right to look out for some other co-founder in alignment with your main co-founder, right? If nothing else happened, then those shares will come actually to the investors, right? So these sort of things actually they take care, and there might be possibility if he's taking an exit on his own, or maybe the company is, removing his from the employment agreement because of any, theft or any negative scenario that has happened. So it is always defined in the agreements, and then accordingly it is a call that is being taken up, at that particular negative scenario, that what will happen. So, and that's why this lock-in, and before lock-in, for example, whatever the locked in shares till the time it becomes vested to the founders, I mean, where the founders can own that and can take a call, during this scenario, if anything happens, then the locked in shares actually plays a very crucial role, because investors can actually either take those shares completely on their own ESOP pool, or maybe can transfer it to the other co-founder, which will be looked out if anything happens and this particular promoter is leaving. So it happens, right? Similarly, there are 2 or 3 of the more important points again I will touch upon, which is the reserve matters. So when you say after the investment has to work in a box, answer is yes to an extent, but this box is basically generally being created for extraordinary items, which generally don't happen in a day-to-day life of a startup. For example, you want to sell your company, you want to sell your, I would say, the undertaking, go for the IPO, creation of more ESOP pool over there, right? To hire some KMPs with a ticket size which is being agreed more than that, right? So, I mean, lot of different reserve matters which is agreed upon. Sometimes the opening of bank account, opening up of new office, right? Going into the litigation, if the matters are involving like more than 1 lakh or more than 5 lakh, then in that case you have to take a prior investor approval. So in the reserve matters, you have to take a prior approval of investors. So maybe for example, it's a very practical scenario. Like if the company wants to take loan, right, or wants to mortgage certain assets, so you may agree upon some threshold limits. Above that, investor approval is required, but below that, you have the comfort to play upon, right? Because many of the different different founders might require funds, from the banks also to run the show. So this might happen. Similarly, so these are the reserve matters. One important element which is being quite connected to it, maybe thin but relevant. At a moment, once you have multiple investors on board, right, the reserve matter is common because as soon as a new investment is coming in, your new SHA or the agreement becomes your master one. It overrules all the previous one. All the different investors becomes the part of this SHA now, this agreement, and this agreement becomes the main master agreement now, correct? So over there, suppose if you have the 4 and 5 or maybe more than that investors, and generally founder doesn't notice the scenario that if any reserve matter comes in, you have to go to each of the investor to take the approval, correct? It might be time consuming, it might lose the essence of that decision making, the time it was required, because some investor might be on travel, some investor is not agreed upon. Even if one is saying no, then it can make you trouble. So generally, majority investors is something we bring in, the decision by majority investors if there are more than a number of investors in the company, more than 4 or 5 or maybe the 3 investors and all. Because in that case, the majority works in, right? Majority could be by number, majority could be by shareholding. Generally, we prefer majority by number over there, until unless if the shareholding difference is quite significant. Then in that case, if the majority is agreed upon a decision, then in that case, other decision will also be considered as an affirmative vote to it. And similarly, if majority is denying that scenario, then in that case, it will be considered as a denial. It safeguards the time, guys. Let me tell you, it safeguards a very significant times. And because once you start running the show, there might be the possibility you might require the approval from the investor on the key business decision making and all. Guys, one more thing is a B plan. I think you prepare a B plan over there based on which you comes to the funding requirement. Okay, that much is the cash you require over there. You must have a lot of different templates and all. B plan become a part of the SHA also, right? Because whatever the funding requirement you have communicated, you have agreed upon, with a cushion also, with a contingency also, it is being there as a part. Tomorrow, if there is any significant difference happen in your B plan, you need to take an investor approval, because it might increase your fund requirement or just change your strategy. So if the month-on-month monitoring happening with the investors post-investment or maybe on the quarterly basis, whenever, or maybe without meeting in fact, if you see that there is a significant changing happening in our B plan, investor would like to have those particular clauses and then you require an investor approval before implementing a new B plan. Otherwise, on a yearly basis, they always ask for a complete year plan to take it forward, right? Yeah. So this is more like on the SHA. And one valuation thing I would like to cover upon. Guys, valuation when we talk about, there might be a possibility that at around your raising, maybe a seed round, pre-series A, or whatever round which is going on, valuation may be decided at this particular point of time or may not be. Generally, investors, what they do, like especially in the terms when the CCPS and all these terms are being agreed upon, there is always an option either to decide a pre-money valuation right away, to provide it in the agreement, take a valuation report, etc., and just proceed with that. Otherwise, they may give a time frame where you can look out for the next round of investment, and definitely you will look out, especially in the next 9 months, 12 months and all. And once the new investment round comes in, whatever the pre-money valuation which will be agreed upon there, since the existing investor or the new investor is taking much more risk coming right now at this stage where no other investor is there, he would like to have the advantage on that particular valuation. Maybe they may ask for a 25%, 30%, 35%, 50% discount on the new round new round valuation, and based on that, this conversion will happen. So in various different cases, these particular clauses are kept by the investors. And in a case if the investment round doesn't happen, in that case they agreed upon a floor value, that say for example 10 CR, 12 CR, 15 CR, at which this investment amount if the ticket size is small, or maybe as the case may be, at which this investment will be converted, right? So guys, one thing you should always keep in mind, investment can drop out at any particular point of time unless the amount is there in your bank account. Very recently, in fact, a news day before yesterday, one of the 5 million round happening in a fintech company where we are the advisors as of now, and it's a Bangalore-based company. So it's a transaction going on from last 3 months, where the secondary transaction, I mean the purchase transaction also happened, right? Where some exit to the previous investor also happened and all. But primary investment, when this amount of check was supposed to come, investors' intent, or I would say investors were shaking up. I mean, it could be the genuine reason, it could be a fake reasons also, but this scenario was happening, and suddenly the founders was in a panic situation. Why? Obviously, based on that amount, many of the other transactions, secondary, many of the other commitments in terms of hiring, many of the other commitment in terms of new order happened, and suddenly if the investor is saying at the time when the signing of SHA is about to done, the meeting was scheduled on Monday, right? It doesn't happen on Monday. It gives a panic situation. Everything was smooth, everything was completed, and once you was just about to celebrate, this scenario happens. Luckily, the scenario sorted out, and the things are proceeding further over there. But I'm just trying to say, anything can happen at any time. One investment was dropped out. Can you believe, with a consideration of ESOP pool? One investor, where there was some round of investors, it was near about a million round, and near about 2 CR was wiped out. Why? Because founders and investors were negotiating on the ESOP pool, and just because of a 3% of ESOP pool, the investor, which was coming from the Singapore, he backed away, and the founder doesn't agree to provide more of the ESOP pool. So you never know. I mean, this is just a one scenario where we talk about the initial consensus. Investor is ready. Due diligence. I'll give you the example. Due diligence is a main gray area, right? Where this scenario comes in. SHA. Sometimes, being a founder, we always see, okay, things have been agreed upon, term sheet, DD has been passed away, everything. We will sign the SHA in next 10 days, 15 days. 3 or 4 of the cases where the founders were thinking like the same way. And actually, this SHA negotiations takes near about 3.5 months, after which actually got signed, and then thereafter the investment happens. You never know, because many times the investors' expectations as well as the terms and negotiations happen in so vague way also, and sometimes investors want to protect too much. I mean, in one of the case, investors were asking for the drag right even in the 5 years, and this was not as an industry practice. So there again, this negotiation happened, over there and again. So investment can drop out at any particular point of time. You have to be very cautious, be very cooperative, flexible, and very rational around that. One last thing before I think I'll say Sonal to come over there. Observer and director seat. That is also a very gray area where sometimes founders have the confusion and all. I mean, because a lot of different the areas in the SHA SSAs. Otherwise, that I'm just touching upon the key areas which be quite relevant. Guys, you need to understand there is a difference between the observer and a board director, right? Observer, as a name suggests, is the guy who observes what is being happening in the company. He is reviewing all the shareholders meeting minutes, right? But is maybe a part of the meeting also, but has no right to say anything, has no right to influence any decision. So sometimes founders get rigid. Okay, we don't even provide the observer. But that is a ask by the investor in a very rational ask, because they would like to see what is being happening. And practically, very rare investors are there. I mean, until unless your round is like more than 2.5, 5 million and all, the actual observers comes in a very small rounds. Generally, we have not seen the observers actually coming in. Then he don't have any right in that way, and founder should be flexible over there so far as the observer is concerned. Director, when we talk about, it's taking a director seat into the board now. So today you might have the 2 directors, and investor would like to have 1 director seat also along with you. Or if you have the composition of 3, in a bigger round, we have seen the investor would like to have the equal board seats. Telling you, and you should be prepared for that also, right? They might like to have, because if they see that okay, our involvement is quite crucial, especially from the funding perspective as well as from the from the driving direction perspective, they might keep the more of the board seats as well. However, it is a very general phenomenon, and we also advise, until unless a significant stake of investor is involved, equity stake investor is having in the company, you should not easily agree to the board seat, right? Because if it's a significant share, like they are holding say 20%, 15% or something like that, especially in the bigger round of investment, then the board seat actually comes in. If it is small round of investments and all, board seat nobody's preferred, and if the investor is asking, you can easily negotiate. You can provide the observer seat, you can talk about it, but not that. So that is how. So we have discussed on the instrument structure, previous investors, key terms, consensus over there. Then signing of SSA, SHA. Is it a time to achieve? Some time to celebrate? In one way, yes. In one way, no. Because now your shoulders are headed with lot of different burdens, which is a milestone. Whatever you have agreed upon, now investor is there. He will look out how you achieve those milestones. Now there is a burden on the founders to perform. To perform in a way you can achieve, you can go for the next round of investments, you can answer the MISAs, the queries of the investors, and investor would like to have a regular communication with the founders, right? Until unless a formal meetings are happening. In our case, when we were in the MCube Capital, we used to have a month-on-month meeting with the founders, right? And I can't tell you, if the ticket size is big, it can be very hard discussions, it can be very soft, both. So founders should be ready. Although it's very, I would say, it's a challenging but enjoyable journey. And yes, as you are seeing, a lot of different investments are happening post-COVID also. So yes, there is to take your business to the next level, this is much more required. So here I would like to take a pause now, and yeah. Yeah, it happens. I mean, it's a very general phenomenon, because the money comes in tranches. See, if you're asking for 10 CR, it doesn't mean if the 10 CR comes to the bank account today and you will start utilizing entire 10 CR. No. You will require the money in phases, right? So money is breakdown into the tranches based on the milestone you talked about, because investor will also try to see that whatever you are saying, committing upon, you actually achieve it. So money actually comes in the tranches. Until unless there are the cases also where the money is coming directly, and these sort of rights you can actually keep in the reserve matters also, like surplus funds you can actually invest in the FDs, or some investor don't allow to put it into the investable securities, because that might be risky, and investor has to know exactly where you are putting surplus funds. But if the surplus funds coming in, it's a very rational call to make corporate FDs, and just invest that money, because it's otherwise a utilization of the fund that happens parallelly. Yeah. I think first then.
Share also transfer money comes in transfer.
Yeah. Allotment happens accordingly, because in your post money structure, money according to their equity is being prescribed, money according to their security is being provided. So as soon as the tranche comes in, you have to allot that tranche, and then you can use that money. So proportionate shares are being allotted, proportionate securities are being allotted as per the tranches.
What are the investment process which is most preferred, like the transfer of shares or the issue of shares, which is more preferred by investors?
Always issue of shares. Transfer, as I told, transfer happens, it may happen, it might not happen, but transfer is happening between the parties who is holding those shares, not the company. So company gets the fund if the issuance of securities will be always there once you are getting the funds in the company. If you are a promoter, you want to transfer your promoter's liquidity shares, you can transfer, the money will come to your bank account, not to the company's one. Yeah.
And so, like when we have go for the issuance of shares, so first part is the valuation, which is done by a valuer.
Yeah.
So suppose for a company which has a 1 crore revenue per year, so like the valuation has to reach 12 CR.
See, generally the valuation in the tranches, the valuation is already pre-decided, pre-agreed now, right? So there, whatever the pre-money you have agreed upon, and based on that, this funding amount and the allotment will happen. It will not be re-decided again and again once the tranches are coming in, because it's a signed agreement now. And before that, you have already obtained the valuation from the compliance valuations from either from the registered value or from the merchant banker. But now this valuation is freeze, and based on that, this tranches will come. Actually, yeah. So over there, see, exit. If I'm an investor, I want to take an exit. Per se, I can't take an exit if there is no buyer. Your upcoming investor has to agreed upon also that yes, in this, out of this 10 CR or maybe 10 CR plus, I would like to give exit, partial exit maybe to some existing investor. If it's not agreed upon, how can you provide the exit? So it's purely an upcoming investor call. For example, in a edtech startup which where the funding has happened recently in our case, there it was a combined call. It was like the secondary transaction also happened and the primary transaction also happened. More than a half a money that came in the primary transaction, and secondary transaction also happened because they wanted to consolidate and clear the cap structure and want to control that over there. And the fund requirement of the company should also match. Because say for example, if the company is looking 5 CR and I say, okay, I'll give you 3 CR and 2 CR I require the shares. No, it doesn't make sense, right? So I will rather put the money over there because the company's requirement is the first priority that I have to take care, right? Then obviously the funds otherwise. So as I told, generally there are only 3 ways, practical 3 ways where the exit actually happens to the investor. So IPO, everyone knows, either the IPO or the next round of investments, multiple round of or the subsequent round of investments, or the acquisition, right? If there could be the acquisition opportunity also, there the exit might happen to the investor.
For the next round of funding, company should always be in short of cash, so then only they can apply for the next round of funding.
Sorry, I didn't get your point.
Should always be in need of cash, so then only they can apply for the next round of funding.
They need not to apply, but yes, if you are reaching to the investor, you are reaching with a rationale that you require funds. There is an entire B plan around roadmap because of which you want funds. So obviously it will be evaluated based on your requirement.
Whenever we are making our projections, so we should not, how should we make the projections? Should we make the company profitable in the first year, second year? How
See, yeah, so okay, I have 2-5 minutes more. Okay. So guys, whenever you are making projections, first of all, make yourself clear that you are making projections for yourself first, not for any third party. Even if you are running the show, presume that there is no funding outside. Then only you can run the show. If you are running the show that, okay, tomorrow I'll get the funding and I'll take it to that level, you will always be focusing only the funding, not the business. Second, projections, make it on a conservative basis. Whatever the target you seems quite achievable, make it on a conservative basis that, okay, on a worst case scenario or on a decent scenario, we can achieve that. So this projection you should first own before coming to a, so sometimes it happens and it's a very usual time, it's not fault of the founders also, but because the funding is something, going so fantasy in their mind, so they try to make a projection in a way, okay, हमारी कम से कम इसमें 2 million funding निकल के आनी चाहिए, अच्छा ये कम पड़ गया इसमें और डालो, ऐसा नहीं होता, right? Your strategy, शो आपको ही रन करना है, आप आज फंडिंग के लिए कुछ भी बना दो, कल को आप वो एग्जीक्यूट ही ना कर पाओ, doesn't make sense, and you have to substantiate, execute तो बाद में आएगा. Investor will grill you like anything on those particular rationale कि उसके पीछे rationale भी था या आपने सिर्फ funding requirement के लिए किया है, तभी तो मतलब जो ये percentages हैं जिसमें how many startups are applying and how many startups got funding, ये क्यों reduce होती है because of all these gaps, right?
Yeah, so what are your thoughts around SAFE in the seed round? What are your thoughts around?
Safe in the sense?
SAFE is like simple agreement for future.
Acha, safe agreements. That is also being happening if the foreign money is coming in, and yeah. So I think in the safe transactions, yes, the CCPs, in one of the transactions, the funds come. So it's a convertible instrument through. Generally, the fundings are coming in basically. So it's a normal process, except the RBI involvement comes in, where it's a FDI, or if not the FDI which might be getting converted right now, or maybe the convert into the future over there based. You have just issued the convertible instrument. So as per the FDI norms, you normally need to have to file the FCGPRs and all. So it's a normal process from the company's perspective. Although if the fund is coming outside India, then certain compliance part has been will increase. Although you also need to check that your segment has to be in the automatic route by the RBI. If it is on the non-automatic route, then you have to take a RBI approval also for that particular scenario. So in last couple of years, I think the clarity was not there, especially with the AD banks. You have touched upon the SAFE, so I would like to mention the authorized dealers, normally your banking channels and the banks you are dealing with. And I'm telling upon the top banks, ICICI, SGFC, right? Even the know-how or the tech or the people they are working, they don't even know about those convertible instrument and all. One of the company's matter is still stuck because the person who is sitting on the compliance side with these ICICI, which are the AD banks and all, are not having the clarity. So now it is with the time the people are getting the clarity, especially the ADs people, authorized dealers. But yes, safe instrument is more like you can consider like the FDs are coming, the FDIs are coming, and accordingly the RBI compliances are being happening. Yeah.
So like, last question.
Sure.
Is there like a similar kind of a thing also in India? Like there is one more called iSafe, like the so it's like an Indian version of SAFE. So,
I need to check, or maybe Sonal can add on this. Yeah, but in the safe scenario, generally the convertible instrument, that has been coming in, due to which the valuation need not to be decided right now. Obviously, it will be decided and it will convert to in the equity future. But the convertible instrument or warrants that is being issued right now, based on that, this safe agreements and the safe scenario are being executed. So right now, this is being happening over there. Yeah. Any other? So thank you guys. I think I've tried to give much more insights, especially on the, you want to ask something? Okay. So on the practical aspects, especially on these transactions that is being happening and where founders should know and founders should be cautious, especially. So your time to celebrate or whatever you called now, I think until unless your transaction is actually completed. So maybe you recall like 5 years back, whenever we going to some events and all, we used to like to have the investor visiting cards and all, or sometimes investors are appreciating our venture and we got excited and all. So this is actually not real. Real is until unless you get the check in your bank account, nothing is real, and anything can be dropped out. Anything can anything happen. So you should be rational. You should be practical enough, flexible enough, right, and sensible enough. So all the best to your upcoming future journey of your startup business as well as the business. And that's it. Thank you.